So, of all the readings that we did last week, my favorite was The Learning in Wartime by C.S. Lewis. And although it wasn't super complicated to understand, maybe like the other ones, I really enjoyed it because he addresses the importance of education and continuous learning, even though there's times of chaos. And although my life isn't World War II, I found this piece to be super comforting because knowing like future plans is super uncertain, and it's nice to know that like even in times of chaos, it's not frivolous to continue in education and to pursue knowledge. There are two particular quotes in the book that I really enjoyed. On page 125, C.S. Lewis quotes, "I mean the pursuit of knowledge and beauty in a sense for their sake, but in the sense which does not exclude their being for God's sake. An appetite for these things exists in human mind, and God makes no appetite in vain. We can therefore pursue knowledge as such, and beauty as such, in the sure confidence that by doing so we are either advancing to the vision of God ourselves or indirectly helping others to do so." And I think like as someone who enjoys school and like considers myself a academic student, I think like I often experience when I talk to other people thought-provoking questions or deep philosophical thoughts or theological questions. People often tell me like, "Oh, why does that matter? Like once we get to heaven, we'll know the answers." And I often get frustrated with that because I think that God had placed in us the ability to go that deep with our minds, and so I really like that C.S. Lewis addresses that and is basically saying like it's our obligation as Christians to press into knowledge and to pursue education. And then the other quote was on page 127, "We are always falling in love or quarreling, looking for jobs or fearing to lose them, getting ill and recovering, following public affairs. If we let ourselves, we shall always be waiting for some distraction or other to end before we can really get down to our work. The only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge so badly that they seek it while the conditions are still unfavorable." And I think that that quote in particular just kind of like puts to rest like fears and anxieties that we potentially could have, and like we can look at all the terrible potential situations and then think that life is kind of pointless, or that pursuing an education or career may not have much value to it. But this kind of counteracts that, saying that if you go by that standard, no matter what, then you'll never find purpose in anything. So it kind of puts that like negative thought or distorted belief to rest. And then for class discussion, uh, the one slide that says, "What's the secret to a meaningful life and what constitutes a happy life?" And so when I read those two questions, I kind of saw a difference between them, like a meaningful life versus a happy life. So when I think of a happy life, which a lot of students in class kind of discuss, like money, external rewards, like success, and affirmation as like defining qualities of a happy life, and I agree with that. But when I think of the word happy in general, I think happy is just so like relative, and it's never a constant state. So people who live happy lives I often associate with people who live in ignorance and live in the surface level of life and aren't willing to be challenged and aren't willing to acknowledge like the chaos or the brokenness of this world. And so I often kind of like associate a happy life or people who live a happy life with being naive. Whereas like a meaningful life, I think even looking at the book of Job and how he faced a lot of struggle and challenges, yet his life had so much purpose and meaning to it. And I think meaning, like, I would categorize like having healthy relationships, having people invest in you and you investing in others, self-reflection, and the pursuit of knowledge. I think those all kind of encapsulate a meaningful life. So I definitely think there's a difference between a meaningful life and a happy life. And um, then that last question of lecture that talked about would we rather be known for being a hero or doing like tiny little like deeds. And obviously I think like the answer should be like you want to live life in a mundane, not in a mundane way, but like just like small, like tiny acts of kindness, to put it in like a cliche way. But I think that people who like do acts of heroism, like I think about like military soldiers, and although like I don't think that they go into the military wanting praise and um, affirmation, they often get super like they get put on this pedestal, and like if you disagree with like war, then at least within American culture, you're seen as, how dare you disrespect our soldiers. And I think that comes with this idea of like heroism and like putting that concept up on a pedestal, where I think if you live your life just like looking to treat others with kindness or provide needs in ways, in small ways or big ways, but like anonymously, or providing services in the best way that you can and extending resources to people, I think that in general, just like over time, says more about your character than at one point in time doing one big act of heroism. So I would definitely rather be the person who does small acts of generosity and charity.